founder of MELD. And this is a Twitter space. It's going to be a little bit of a different format from our normal MELD with Us AMAs. This time we're going to have a guest that we've already spoken to on several occasions, Carlos Rene with DEGA. I think we'll wait just a couple of minutes for more people to come join the call, join the space, and then we'll kick it off.
Awesome.
In the meantime, any questions you guys have that you feel like are appropriate for the space, please leave them in the chat here. We will do what we can to answer them. And hopefully we'll be able to cover a lot of ground in the next hour.
Indeed.
Okay, I think we're going to kick it off. Like I was saying, today's AMA is going to be a little bit different than the AMAs that we've had in the past. We've already spoken to DEGA on several occasions through various different channels. So I think on this particular AMA, we're going to do a bit of sparring back and forth. So I've asked Carlos to come up with some difficult questions to ask me about MELD. And I've come up with a handful of difficult questions to ask Carlos about DEGA. So hopefully some of this dialogue and some of these questions and answers will be a bit more on the challenging side and give everybody here who has some familiarity with both of these projects a little bit better context and a little bit better understanding.
Yep.
So I think as a starting point, to give everybody a rough context, my name is Ken Alling. I'm the founder of MELD. MELD is a lending and borrowing protocol, cross-chain. We have several different products in the market. We have a wallet, we have a blockchain. We're in the process of launching a bank. And we have other products that are coming out towards the end of the year. Carlos and DEGA are a infrastructure for the next generation of blockchain technology and layer 2s and metaverse development. He'll go into a bit more detail about the specifics as we get into the conversation. DEGA is in the process of launching their ISPO, which will be something quite special. I'm going to talk a little bit about that or have some questions about that a little bit later. It starts on the 19th. It's already taken off with a pretty good success so far. You're what? North of 3 million delegated and you haven't even started, right?
Yeah.
Carlos?
Yep, indeed. Yeah, last time I checked, we were already over 3.5. We'll probably reach the 4 million ADA mark today. And again,
Nice.
yeah, it hasn't technically started yet. It's just that people went in and found the pool and started delegating.
Congratulations with that. That's great.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
So I think that we're going to kick it off now and start up. I, being the host of this, I think I'm going to start with my questions, if that's okay with you, Carlos.
Yeah, let's get it rolling. I'll just do a quick intro for DEGA for anybody that doesn't know us. Basically, DEGA, we're building out, as Ken said, blockchain gaming infrastructure. Our whole focus is to be able to provide scalability and ease of use, right? We want the game developers to be able to focus on their game instead of focusing on all the complexities of blockchain protocols, right? And our flagship product right now is to be able to deploy layer 2s in 5 minutes on top of multiple ecosystems such as Ethereum, Cardano, Polkadot, Polygon, and many others coming our way. Right now, we've already announced a layer 2 in partnership with Cornucopias Games, the largest NFT land sale in the Cardano ecosystem. We're very proud to be working with them, and we're also onboarding new partners for that. With MELD Finance, we're also working together to be able to provide multi-chain ISPOs in the MELD wallet so that anybody from a single wallet can start delegating across multiple ecosystems, right? Ken and I believe that ISPOs are going to be the future of supporting projects, decentralized projects on the blockchain industry, right? So having said that base context off, let's go off to the races with the questions.
Sounds good. So my first question, knowing a lot about your project, there are lots of layer 2s, there are lots of side chains. We have Hydra and Cardano, we have, optimistic rollups, we have Arbitrum, we've got ZK Sync, we have Polygon and they're coming out our ears, these different layer 2 solutions and various different flavors of them. Proof of time, proof of authenticity, proof of whatever.
Yeah.
Why another one? Why do we need another layer 2? Why do we need another solution to try and speed up and help Ethereum and help other blockchains become more performant? Why do you feel like there's a space, there's a need for it? Why do you think there's a space for yet another one?
So right now, it doesn't feel like it, but we haven't even taken off in this industry in reality, right? If we look at the internet today versus the internet in the 90s, it's a completely different beast, right? Everything from its hardware to the protocols that enable the internet to how you make an internet system. Like you design today an internet web application in a completely different manner than how you would have done it in the 90s, right? And to be very specific, for example, in the 90s, you would not get something like virality. There was no such thing. There were no social media. There was no internet on people's phones, right? So you'd get a few thousand clicks every day, and that's about it. So you didn't need to make your system to be able to robust enough to be able to adapt to literally having millions of people coming into your website, right? Today, that is the case, right? You got to design a scalable cloud system out of the box. And that's why AWS exists, that's why Google Cloud exists. And we're kind of like in the same way going to need that for blockchain, right? We're going to remember these times as something like, oh, you were happy if you had 10,000 active community members in your system, right? There's no need right now to support 5 million people coming to use your crypto application, right? But there will be in the future, right? So as we're heading towards that mass adoption, a whole new generation of completely different architectures for making blockchain apps needs to be designed, right? And that's what DEGA is bringing to the table, right? We're bringing all of our experience from making scalable cloud systems to making scalable blockchain systems. Today, we have an ICO and basically the network blocks up. We have an NFT sale and then the network fees shoot up, right? Or it gets clogged up in terms of the number of transactions, right? So either you're slow down or you get too expensive. That's basically what's happening right now. With DEGA, we're going to build out the whole new generation of systems that will allow you to keep working.
But this is the same elevator pitch that ZK Sync has, that Supernets have, that Avalanche subnets have, that everybody and their brother has. It's like infinite scalability. Great. We have a blockchain and then we have another whole bunch of other blockchains and we connect those blockchains together. And therefore, theoretically, everything can be scaled to whatever, pick a number, 500,000 transactions a second, 1 million transactions a second.
Yeah, but is it true though? Because like right now, you guys recently deployed a subnet. Is that subnet connected to the mainnet?
No, not yet.
Yeah,
not at all. So it's being worked on by Avalanche, but it's not. There is no like formal connectivity like you have on Cosmos.
Exactly. So that's the difference, right? The systems we're designing are built in to interconnect out of the box, straight up, and without you not even needing to do it yourself, but not even care about it. Like it's gonna be invisible for you in the background. You're just gonna say, deploy this DeFi application, right? Let's say the MELD lending protocol, deploy it, and I need it to scale, and it just will out of the box. And all of the complexities and the engineering behind the scenes, you're not gonna even care about it. Just like right now, when you use Gmail, you couldn't care less what Linux version that server is using, right? You just want to use Gmail.
So when you say scalability, you mean scaling across the blockchains, or you mean scaling on top of a single blockchain, like Cardano or Ethereum or Avalanche?
Yeah, so that's a good point. It means scaling across your one blockchain, wherever you chose to deploy it. We are allowing you to deploy on multiple ecosystems, but you're going to pick one, right? It's going to be either Avalanche, Cardano, whatever, or you're going to have applications on both of them. That's kind of like a different conversation. That's an interoperability conversation, not a scalability one. So if we're talking about scalability, it's the one app you deploy, that needs to be able to scale to the internet.
Okay, so the value proposition here has to do with vertical scalability on the blockchain that you have chosen or on the blockchain technology you've chosen, not horizontal scalability across multiple blockchains.
Correct.
But isn't that kind of no, I guess it's not similar to Avalanche in the sense because there's no connectivity. Yeah, I guess it is a little bit. But so then, how is it different than something like a ZK Sync or a Polygon? Because Polygon doesn't play nice with Arbitrum or any of the other L2s, Harmony, etc. It's its own beast, and it lives in its own little silo.
Yeah, so I think that would be saying how is one flavor of Linux different from the other flavor of Linux. And to be honest, those things are going to become commodities. Right now, they're up in our face because that's like what each one of them is selling, right? Versus, for example, in DEGA, what we want to focus on is selling you the solution to your problem, right? We don't want you to care about what CK we're running underneath. We will be integrating some of the open source systems that already exist. We will be designing new ones, right? But what you need to care about is that we're providing you with the DEGA 1 API, and that will allow you to build out your system without, you don't need to care about if it's running CK Snark, optimistic rollup, none of that. That is absolutely not relevant for you in building your business.
Okay. It's not relevant, then what, if I'm coming to you and talking to you, or I want to use this tech, what should I be thinking about? Why? What is different from what I would do? Like when you helped us in regards to Avalanche and choosing a subnet, we had lots of technical discussions around the ins and outs of various different solutions like subnets. What should people be thinking when DEGA goes live?
Well, when our DEGA Studio product goes live, the experience you'll feel is the same one that you get when you go right now to AWS Cloud or Google Cloud. And for example, right now, if you want a website, you just say, let's give me a new website platform or give me a new SQL server, right? And you get that provision, and then you focus on your business where you really, that's where you're creating your value proposition versus building an in-house blockchain development team, right? That's not what you set out to do your business. So
Right.
That's the experience, that's the product, that's the value proposition that we're bringing to the table. Before AWS, the internet was a completely different beast. And after them, everybody just went through the cloud model. And that's exactly what we're bringing to the table. There's before DEGA and there's after DEGA in terms of working with blockchain.
So when I go to AWS or I go to Azure or whoever, I'm going there to get servers, I'm going there to get databases, I'm going there to get load balancers. I think that's the majority of what I'm looking for in a cloud service provider. So if you were to replace those things, like in AWS or one of those, what would be the things that you would be going to get in DEGA?
Beautiful question. I love it. So one of the things that's why we invented a few concepts, right? So when you're going to DEGA, you're going to get a metachain, right? A metachain is like the equivalent of your dedicated blockchain protocol, right? Now that metachain might be a layer 2, it might be a layer 1, it might be layer 3. We'll give that option to a developer who really needs to know that. He'll know which one he needs. But if you're just provisioning it as a business, you'll just describe what your requirements are. Is this a standalone game? Okay, then maybe you can have your own blockchain. You don't need to integrate to another one. Is your metachain need to be integrated with Ethereum, with Cardano, with both? And then based on that, the system will provide that. And then underneath the hood, we can have layer 2s, layer 3s, everything that you're going to need to be able to scale. But for you, in your mind, the concept is that guy's giving you a metachain. And you're going to treat it as if it was one single blockchain for your perspective and simplicity. That's one thing. Another thing you can provision is an NFT marketplace, like for example, right? Where that NFT marketplace is built on Solidity, is it built on WebAssembly in Rust? You don't care, right? But you just need an NFT marketplace. You need a DEX to swap your in-game currencies. There it is. So all of those are like the pre-built components that you'll be getting, right? NFT minter, a loyalty rewards program, pre-built, whatever it is that we've built out, it'll be there for you to provision, but without you having to right now think about, oh, I need to get a Solidity dev and an audit and blah, blah, blah. No, it's already pre-built, ready to use.
So in the DeFi world, you have this concept of primitives, also known as money Legos. That's a basic concept that a lot of people understand. It's a DEX, lending and borrowing protocol, a couple of other things. Would you say that that is what DEGA is doing, but instead of for DeFi, for blockchain, for infrastructure? Or or is that right at all?
Yeah, there's one thing that everybody needs to account, right, for, which is the audience you're talking to, right? And I know that we pitched that, oh, money Legos and how cool is modularity. Okay, let me break it to you. Simple. Every single software that you've ever used is built like that. Everything is made like Legos. That is not innovative at all. That's how we do things as engineers, right? And it sounds impressive outside, but that's everybody does software like that, right? So of course, everything that we're building is also modularized. The engineer and the coders need to know which different components there exist at a micro level, let's say. But as a business, again, right, as a game development business, as a metaverse business, what you're going to care about is more, let's say, on the solutions perspective, right? That's like the word that we use in software for the commercial side of things. And a solution is, as its name says, a solution to a problem, right? So an example is an NFT marketplace. That's a solution that uses many modules behind the scenes, right, to get the job done. So that's kind of like what we're going to be seeing in the dashboard. You're going to be seeing the solutions, but the engineers that they want to go to the lower levels, they go to the DEGA one API. And in the API, they can target every module separately. You're muted if you're talking, Ken.
Sorry. So I think that's enough me picking on you. I think it's your turn.
Oh, man, I love it. Like, I perform better under pressure. Keep all the questions coming. But yeah, let's put you on the spot. I'm from Honduras originally, right? Which is a country most people in this conversation probably don't even know where it is. Right now, I live in Costa Rica, a little bit more popular, but still not so well known. We have a whole host of universe of different problems in our financial systems, right? And however much you guys can complain in Europe or in the US about your banks, you know, that they suck, whatever your bank does that's so bad, that is like a good day for us. Right. Knowing this and you having built MELD as a global solution, as a global platform, how are you going to address the strong friction points that we have with fiat on and off ramps in emerging markets for your crypto products? Specifically, even fintechs are struggling with this. So what's your strategy to address this and in emerging markets and underdeveloped nations and worse off?
Yeah, I think so. I think that there's a couple of parts to this. The first is the product offering. So I can't speak specifically to Honduras or Costa Rica. We've talked a little bit about it in the past, what it's like on the ground. But from a product perspective, our goal is to be blind. So we want to build product, lending and borrowing, fiat, it doesn't matter what it is. The principle is to build the product completely blind. In other words, we don't pass judgment, we don't make decisions based on sex, race, location, religion, any of these criteria. All of it has to be treated exactly the same. So we would not deliver a product if that product, for example, had a different interest rate in Honduras than it did in Costa Rica, than it did in California, than it did in Switzerland. We would only ever touch products that allow us to offer this globally. And if you go into Revolut or some of these neobank websites and you actually dig around, that there's this entire web of fees that vary massively based on the currency you're using, the currency you're coming from with your home account, the currency you're going into the target account. All of these things, these huge variables. It's like the 90s, early 1990s with DVDs, when you could buy a DVD in Europe, and if you took it to the United States, you couldn't watch it. Or it's like with music. Some music you can listen to here, some music. It's ridiculous. So the first step is product. We only build product and we only offer product that makes this possible. So an example would be right now, we're going through in detail with all of our fiat rails, and we're testing real world tests. Okay, in a real world situation, if I'm taking dollars and my home country is in Germany, but I'm using dollars and I'm sending them to a person's account whose nationality is in Costa Rica, how much does that cost? What is the price? Does it vary from me being an American using euros, or not, sorry, American, bad example. Being a Canadian, using euros, sending from Canada to Bulgaria. So we're doing all these kinds of tests to try and, it's like peeling an onion. We're trying to peel back all of these details to get down to the core where we can say, okay, this is where all of these problems lie. And these are the mistakes, or these are the friction points that we have to try and fix, so that if you decide to send whatever it is, yen, from your Italian account to your Norwegian account, you're not going to be charged anything different than anywhere else. So that's the first step, is the product side. And the second step is experience, and getting the experience in country to see how we can actually make things better, how we can fix problems. Because in one way, the challenges you've talked about, they are unique, but they are not unique to a particular country. They're unique to an excluded part of the financial world.
Yes.
They're similar types of problems in Nigeria, in South Africa, in Vietnam. Obviously, each of these countries are going to have different challenges connected to them, but in reality, these friction points are pretty universal if you boil them down to the basics. And so I think that the goal is to gather as much knowledge as we can, experience as we can, and again, go back to this idea of product and constantly bang on this product to make it more efficient and more efficient.
All right.
That's part of the reason why we built the blockchain, right? We built the MELD blockchain because we needed to have that transaction cost super tiny.
All right, I get it. So basically, you're gonna test it out, and as you test, you're gonna adapt to the circumstances that you're facing, right?
Yeah, and use this kind of, I don't know if I would call it arrogance, but this kind of looking at everything as a problem that to be solved, and not looking at something as a limitation. So we don't want to look at the system as a limitation. We want to look at the system as a problem.
Yeah.
And if we look at it as a problem, then we figure out solutions to solve it, as opposed to just, that's the way it is. That's the way it always has been. Let's just live with it. That's not our approach.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. You'll definitely be facing some unique challenges, as you said, not on per country basis, but let's say on a per regional basis where people have been neglected, especially transaction fees are going to be the hardest one. Okay, great. Basically, now let's say you're working it out, you're meeting each challenge, you're breaking down the barriers to access, and now you've got people's attention, right? You can serve people in Nigeria, in Honduras, in Nicaragua. You're there. People want to work with MELD. They want to use your systems. How do we make this simple for people who are not crypto savvy, right? Because if you grab my grandma and you're saying like, Mrs. Cerrato, you can now do your savings with us. You're going to get a better rate because we're not discriminating you. You tell her, here's MetaMask. Have fun.
Hello?
Hello? Yeah, I can hear you.
I think you've cut out.
Hello. Can you hear me? Okay, I'm going to drop and come back.
You've cut out. Are you back? I don't know if it was me or if it was you, Carlos, but what happened? He's become a listener. All right, 1 second. Hello, Carlos?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, no. I don't know what happened. You cut out.
Yeah, I think it's a bug with Twitter. Sometimes when we're in like Twitter Spaces, after a while, it just cuts. Yeah. So my last question was basically how we deal with the user experience, right? You grab my grandma and you say, Mrs. Cerrato, here's MELD. We're going to give you better savings, interest, because we don't discriminate. Okay, she's sold. And then you're like, here's your MetaMask or your NAMI wallet or your MELD wallet or your private keys. What's the next step? How do you address that?
So, again, 2 points. First, there's about 500 million crypto users in the world now. So our focus is on converting the believers as it stands. So we're not making any attempts to try and bring on people that are not familiar with crypto. This is largely a sort of a practical thing to service people that know that there's a pain point to be solved, and we're able to then help them solve it.
I'm gonna
so that's the first step.
That one, because I
please.
don't believe there's 500 million crypto users. That is for me, that is a super exaggerated. There's 500 million wallets, and I'm gonna tell you, everybody here, I got 200 wallets, so I'm like 200 people on the network, right? So no, there's no 500 million.
So what would you say would a reasonable number would be for the number of crypto users?
I would take something like maybe the Binance users and then add up the Kraken users, right? So we're like roughly what, 40 million, 50 million between both of those? That would be reasonable because Binance serves basically non-US, and then you have Kraken, which serves US. So those two should give you a pretty good idea.
But are you taking into consideration places like China and India and other countries in those regions that are much more engaged in crypto than places like the United States and Europe and South America?
More than that, Latin America is like the top engagement. In terms of engagement, right? We're obviously not as big as India, but we're super engaged. And we all have Binance, by the way. So that's why I say it's a good reference in that sense. Sure, that was a simplistic way to look at it. Let's say there's obviously more than just Kraken and Binance users, but it's a good target. Like I would be extremely skeptical of 500 million users, right? Extremely skeptical.
I'm going off of Bloomberg, so I haven't done the numbers myself, but yes. Yeah. I understand your point. So still, regardless of that, it's still 50 million people we're talking about. And so even if we get 1%, it's still a lot of users. And so the focus is to offer the product to people that know that there's a problem of on-ramping and off-ramping, people that know that there's a problem of being able to convert crypto to fiat and fiat to crypto, that know that there's a problem with selling your crypto because then you have to pay capital gains tax. These are known problems. These are challenges that exist in the market today. So we're focusing on trying to address that first. Once we've addressed that, then we'll expand to the non-crypto users. We'll expand to the sort of the new users. And that will probably focus largely around some sort of major event, whether there's a serious downturn in the economy or there's a new bull market or something like that.
Okay.
We're going to correlate our adoption approach or our sort of expansion or growth to the non-crypto people when there is an opportunity for that to happen in the market. Until then, the goal is to work with people that are in the crypto space and then use that as obviously it's going to be easier sell. It's an easier proposition to go out into the market with. But also it means that then we can focus our attention on making the user experience better and easier and simpler. And there, like you have said, there's a couple of major friction points. The one that you point out all the time is the seed phrase, the ability to own your own seed phrase. We saw that with Ledger, there is very little appetite in the market, especially among people that are very loud, to get away from the seed phrase thing. We have to, in order to have major adoption. But I do agree with most of the critics that the way of solving this is not by giving parts of your seed phrase to large corporations.
Ledger just did a terrible job there, right? I'm going to say it straight. Whoever did product design on their side failed massively. If I would have been there in that table, you know me, I would have stand up and would say, this sucks, guys. It's a horrible idea. If you go about it that way, you'll fail. And that's what they did. And they're not the first ones to go about it in that way. That's why they failed, because actually there's already people waiting to hear that stupid idea to complain about it. So they just should have done a little bit more research. But there's good ways to go about it. I think that the private key management through hardware wallets absolutely makes sense. It's just that you could do that as a second step, right? For example, when you go to the bank, they can give you two-factor authentication, right? Like most banks are doing that, right? But you usually don't get it like if you're just depositing $50, right? If I'm just going to go and play a blockchain game, or I just have $200 worth of crypto, is it worth it having a hardware wallet? Maybe not.
No.
Once you start going into the thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, once you're a whale, absolutely. So you shouldn't have to do the maximum possible level of security on your first step. That's kind of like my complaint with that experience. Not that it's a bad idea, it's just that it's not necessary at the start. But moving on to our next question. So I do agree with you saying that a major market event is great for you to be able to on board the non-crypto people. If you're going into a big bull market and there's a lot of money to be made, it's like an easier pitch.
Yeah.
Hey guys, come here to make money. Yeah, they're gonna go in there. But that also ties it together with a problem. In crypto, we have crazy volatility, man. This is insane. Like in crypto, you have volatility that would bankrupt entire economic systems. And somehow we're still all here just laughing it out. But so how do you protect or how do you help? And let's assume, I know you already said you're targeting first the crypto people, but then once we are targeting the other people, how do we help the blue collar factory worker to not get wrecked in a bear market downfall? Because this is like losing 90% of your Bitcoin valuation would like morally crush a lot of people. So how do we bring them into this minefield of volatility that we have?
So I think that the way that most people approach this is through education, right? Everybody and their brother has some sort of education program to try and bring people on and all of this kind of stuff. I think that where our focus is clear communication. So the ability for us to look at something and compare it against something else. You can't currently do that. The amount of information we have to compare, for example, just one token from another token is next to zero. You can go in and you can look at the charts on CoinMarketCap, but that's about the extent of it. And so I think that being able to have something, I mean, you could call it a rating system. I don't like the idea of a rating system because it becomes this kind of authoritarian type of a deal, but something that where people can actually go and say, I want to look at this token versus this token, or this product versus this product, or this instrument versus this instrument, and be able to make an educated decision. What I don't want to do is I don't want to protect people.
I see.
I have no interest in protecting them. I have interest in empowering them to make their own decisions as to what level of risk that they want to get into on their own. So that is a personal choice. That is not something that is in my purview in regards to running MELD. We're not going to do anything that is damaging, nefarious. We're not going to make product that is bleeding edge, dangerous, doing things like massive leveraging or gearing or something like that. So we're not going to build something that is built to make a train wreck. But at the same time, we're not going to say we're not going to provide high risk products that have high returns. We're just going to try and make it so that people can look at two different products and they can make a judgment call as a normal person, not as a financial expert, as a normal person being able to look and say, yes, this is a high yield, but it's a high risk and I'm accepting that risk, versus this is a low yield and it's a low risk and that's not really what I'm looking for. And so I think that that's really where we're focused on empowerment, not protection. If you want to do protection, you can go to a centralized exchange and do all of that kind of stuff, or just wait until the bank comes into play to get the bank's sort of perspective on things. Empowerment is what we're after.
I see. So it's about, in terms of the product, we could say that it's all going to be about presenting the right information so that they can make their choices.
Yes, presenting as much information in a normal way that people can make their own. Because crypto and finance are very similar in many ways. They're like most industries. They're filled with massive, complex jargon.
Yes.
And this jargon becomes a barrier to entry.
Yeah.
And the jargon's not going away, but if we can provide these instruments or these signposts that describe something in a clear purview, and that there's an alignment of goals. That's the biggest problem with rating systems, right? There's no alignment of goals. The rating system, they make money off of being able to rate something. So if most of the stuff in the market is complete shit, they're not going to get a lot of business. Yeah. And so how can you help? And we're trying to figure out ways to do this through the DAO to make it so that there's an alignment of goals where you're rating something and the people that are using it can see that rating has a value for them, not a value that is centered around, for example, the DAO making money. But that's a big challenge.
It is indeed. Okay, so we're ramping up to the final minutes of this conversation. And before we drop, I definitely do think it's important for both of our communities to understand how are we going to be working to get. Briefly touched upon it at the beginning, but could you say what's your perspective on things in terms of what DEGA is bringing to MELD and what MELD can bring to DEGA.
Yeah, so from a collaboration perspective, the starting point is the ISPO. I'm super happy that you guys are doing this multi-chain ISPO. We want to support it as much as we possibly can because we're going multi-chain. We see this as a great opportunity to yell at the top of our lungs on the benefits of an ISPO, which both pushes the ISPO and helps you guys out. So that is a big opportunity for us. And then secondarily, as we grow and as we expand and as you guys come into the market, then we want to be able to use DEGA infrastructure to be able to deploy, to be able to have more efficient management of our infrastructure, to be able to handle all of our infrastructure with less overhead. So those are the two areas that I see the major points of being able to collaborate together.
Beautiful. Yeah. I think that one of the key things that we always talk about, because it's a big point for me, being from Latin America, is to be able to support people in emerging markets. That's one of the most beautiful things about blockchain. It's open, it's accessible to anybody, it doesn't discriminate in that sense. And I think that ISPOs is something that's going to be very hot in terms of entrepreneurs and innovators across the world, right? Because right now, let's say somebody in Taiwan wants to support somebody in Nicaragua, it's very hard for them to be, even if they like the project, even if they like the person, sending them $20,000 is hard, right? It's a tough sell versus setting up a stake pool and then just doing delegation to the stake pool, and then you're participating in the project while still allowing the project to kickstart their operations. So it makes a lot of sense for a global world. SPOs make a lot of sense for an international entrepreneurial ecosystem.
It's also a time thing, though. And that's one of the special characteristics, right? Is that when you start the ISPO, it's not like an IDO where you all of a sudden dump a bunch of money in and then you get a bunch of tokens or you get a bunch of whatever, right? The person, you, whoever it may be that's doing the ISPO, you have to perform over a period of time. I think you said that your ISPO is running for 5 months. That means the community has the opportunity to vet you, kick the tires, ask you questions, hear how you behave, see how you behave over the next 5 months. It's not a big marketing point, do an IDO, sell a whole bunch of stuff, and then walk away.
FOMO people.
It takes time.
Yeah, the IDOs like FOMO people into it, right? Like it basically hijacks their limbic systems, right, into FOMO, into something. And then once it happens, it's too late. Like, oh, damn, it turns out that this project wasn't good. It turns out that team wasn't good. It's too late. You already gave them the money. You already bought the tokens. Where in ISPO is you can delegate, you can stake, unstake. You're supporting to secure the network and supporting this new project without any of these limitations there.
So maybe we can open it up to questions from the Spaces group. If there's anybody who has questions, please raise your hand, I guess. I've never done this before. I've never actually brought someone up on stage, but
There's a question right now in the comments. For example, it says, why does this project need their own token? Why not just use AVAX or some other market-ready blockchain? That's a great question, right? And the answer to this is that's the only way to build out decentralized system, right? Like, why does AVAX exist? Why not just use Ethereum? Why does Ethereum exist? Why not just use Bitcoin? And the thing is that every protocol is building out new components, new modules, new decentralized systems that work in different ways. And the only way to decentralize that is using tokens for staking, right? If you're using proof of stake, you could also decentralize it with proof of work. But as we know, that it's more energy intensive. It's also very expensive to set up mining systems versus validators or proof of stake networks. And also it opens you up to an attack vector. Because if there's already a massive amount of capital, let's say I were to use proof of work like Bitcoin. Let's say I'm not going to use any tokens. I'm going to use proof of work. So if I use the same hashing algorithm as Bitcoin, then somebody that's a small player in Bitcoin can completely dominate my network, right? Because I'll have less people mining for me. If I were to use the Ethereum token for decentralization, then there's already players that have not enough Ethereum to attack Ethereum, but they would be massive players in my system. So they could take control of my system. So that's why continuously as we deploy new decentralized layers, of technology, we need tokens to be able to decentralize.
But I think it's a good idea to also talk about how the token is used in your system, the burn mechanic, and how it operates across all of the infrastructure.
Sure, happy to do. So we're taking one of the good lessons learned from Ethereum in the sense that part of their base fee, when you pay a transaction fee, there's a part of it called base fee, and that's burn. And that's a way to burning is as legit as minting is, right? So I know there's a lot of hate for burning on some sides, and there's a lot of love for it as well. But there's just two sides of a different coin, right? Just as minting is something that is tied to economic activities, burning is as well, right? And the way that it works is that in DEGA, not only the transaction fees across multiple layer twos are going to be burned, but also the fees of the applications built on top of them. For example, if you're using the DEGA NFT marketplace, all the marketplaces have fees. So those fees are also going to accrue in a pool, and then they're going to be used to buy and burn DEGA. And that's kind of like the way to, and this is all decentralized, right? It's not like it's going to be done by myself with an account, right? It's not that the data is going to go to me and then I have to burn it. No, it's all pre-built into smart contract technology. So that's kind of like the way it works. So fees from NFT marketplaces, DEX swaps, NFT minters, any module that we're building that accrues fees will have those fees burned to buy and burn DEGA. Or if it's DEGA directly, it'll just be burned directly. So that's how you do deflationary pressure on tokens.
But the point from my perspective is that when you have the DEGA token, you're effectively participating in this kind of cross-chain infrastructure play. You're participating in the infrastructure. And if you think of it, or how I think of it is, you have verticals. You have Ethereum, Avalanche, etc. So each one of those has their own coin, right? The main token for gas. And DEGA sits horizontally across those. And so the token operates across all of these chains. It behaves to some degree similar to a coin, but the delivery and the value proposition, the mechanic that it brings to the table is a horizontal thing. It goes across multiple chains. And so I think that's how I see it, at least.
Yeah, you're correct, right? In that sense, you can use it in the systems that we build, or you can stake it and provide your own infrastructure to support the decentralized components of it, right? So it allows you to be able to work with people building on top of Ethereum, people building on top of Cardano, people building on top of Avalanche and other systems that we will be integrating as we move forward. And again, as I was saying, we're before the massive wave of adoption. We haven't even begun as an industry. We have billions of people that are going to be coming into this system. So there's going to be probably thousands of blockchains. And DEGA wants to be we will be the infrastructure for it. Yeah.
Stake pool. What stake pools? What's the ticker for your stake pool?
It's DEGA1. But to avoid confusion, I just tell everybody go to our website, and in there you'll see the blog post, and use that blog post as a reference. That is your only source of truth, right? And I say this just to avoid confusion. So somebody might create a DEGA1 with the word one, right? And then people will go there. So go to dega.org, which is DEGA.org, DEGA.org, and in there, blog post, and then you'll see the multi-chain ISPO blog article, and use that as a reference. You'll find the stake pool link there.
Super. I think we have some more questions in here. How do we stake? It's a normal Cardano staking.
Yeah.
So you can just use whatever staking mechanic or whatever staking tool you want to use. Just go to the DEGA1 pool that has more than 3 million ADA staked already. And it starts on June 19th, correct?
Yeah, that's when we're publishing the dashboard UI, and you'll be able to see your rewards in real time there.
And when does it end?
It's going to run for 42 epochs starting on June 19th. That's about January 16th. It should be ending. That's the cap. Either we reach that date or we distribute all the rewards before that time. That's about it.
And can you talk a little bit about the benefits for MELD holders?
Oh, yeah. So basically, anybody that has MELD token, there's a minimum that you need to hold in your wallet. It's the equivalent about $50. So it's a very small minimum. Everybody that's a MELD holder will get a bonus for delegating in our stake pool. You get extra data, which is 5% extra DEGA for being a MELD holder.
Nice. All right. As always, thank you very much, Carlos. I hope everybody thought this was interesting. If you did, please give us a comment, and we'll do more of these kind of more difficult question, more sparring type of AMAs rather than the kind of polite tell us about your history in crypto. And we'll keep this up. But thank you guys for your time, and I appreciate it.
One last thing, Ken. One last thing. It'd be cool, like we were talking, to have a MELD tribe.
Yeah.
So anybody here that's part of the MELD family and loves gaming, loves building gaming guilds, hit us up in the DEGA Discord or Telegram, and we'll get you set up so you can represent MELD.
Yeah, we have a MELD tribe, right?
Sorry?
We have a MELD tribe now.
No, we don't. We need to set it up.
Okay, all right. We need to set up the MELD tribe. So that's a task for us next week. We'll set up the MELD tribe.
Beautiful.
Great. Thank you, everybody, and have a great day.
Bye-bye.